Hi guys, it's Cindy
Hello, it's Michael.
from Part-Time Permies, and have a few people in the room so far. We were rushed to get this going, but looks like Kiri's here, your mom's here, Linda's in the room, and don't know if anyone else has joined in yet. I think had a record on how fast I put together some pictures for tonight because we just got home like a half hour ago, 45 minutes ago.
Yep.
I guess we should check on a sound check. Make sure you guys can hear us. It looks like the microphone's working tonight. So if you could just give verification, that'd be awesome. And I feel like I'm running around. I'm still out of breath. But yeah, so I hope everybody had a good week. Everybody's having a good Labor Day weekend. Linda says she starts back to work tomorrow after 2 years. So far the results this week say cancer free. Yay! Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great news.
Congratulations on that one. Hi, Incense Shop. And I hope you're starting back to work on Labor Day. Aren't you supposed to have Labor Day free of laboring? No.
Yeah.
But I do hope everyone's having a good Labor Day weekend. And Autumn Girl Acres is in the room. Is this your first time in the room? Thanks for joining us if it is. Or thanks for joining us either way. But we had a bit busier day than kind of planned.
I thought we planned a busy day.
We did kind of plan a busy day. I just didn't realize exactly how long it would be. But we went and helped a friend butcher ducks today. So we have some pictures from that. And
yes, this afternoon we were out there.
Yes. And we also were able to get some Cornish cross chickens from them that they were ordering a bunch to do themselves and asked if we wanted to go in with them. So we have not done Cornish cross before. So we got that, a whole 25 Cornish cross that we'll be trying out this year. So, and the crazy thing is they're due to be butchered the month I'm due to deliver. So needless to say, they're actually going to help us butcher too. So that'll be good.
Yeah, we would help. They're going to probably butcher the day before us. We'd go and help them butcher. There's some talk about doing morning and afternoon or whatever, but we can't go the day before because I have markets. We both have markets.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
try and catch it coming up here on a Sunday afternoon. Put these in the freezer before too long.
And your mom's right. I'm still out of breath. It's harder to catch my breath because yes, there is someone pushing into my lungs. I have noticed that, especially when I've been running around like a chicken with my head cut off, or should we say like a duck with its head cut off. They seem to be even more active than chickens.
Yep.
Unfortunately, when you process them. But okay, so just checking in on the text. Okay. Incense Shop joined in. Hello. Unless I said hello before. I'm not sure if I did. And Green Gables too. Yes. And you got that pasta mailed out this week.
Yeah.
Right?
That went out on Friday. Number of delays catching the.
So you should be getting that soon, Green Gables. Hopefully.
We didn't have your address for a while. We had to go find it, and then last week
we figured it out.
Then I didn't mail it out the first week because it slipped our minds and addresses, and we dug up your address, and then the post office closes in the afternoon for an hour or two. Seems like every time I try and go to the post office with a package, you always catch the time when they're closed, and then it's impossible to make it at some other time.
Yeah, so
I finally got it out on Friday.
They close for lunch, but it always seems to be right when you want to go there.
Actually, they don't close for lunch.
Oh, it's the hour after lunch?
They close for sending out and receiving packages.
At lunch hour?
It's 1:30 to 2:30 or 2 to 3. I think it's 1:30 to 2:30.
Yeah, it's in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Hello, Michigan Mike. So yeah, we have a few updates for this week. I'll run through a handful of them so far. For those of you guys who caught the what do you call it, slideshow at the beginning, There were a bunch of pictures in there. One is from our greenhouse. Our peppers in our greenhouse are going nuts. So I picked a whole bunch of peppers. They seem not to be our Trinidad peppers that we were hoping for. They seem to be more chili type peppers.
They're a lot like a Thai pepper. They've got a nice sort of sweet fruitiness at the beginning, much like a Thai pepper. And they're on the hot side. They're not screaming hot, but they're pretty hot. I think they're going to make a really nice fermented vinegar hot sauce, or maybe cooked down into more like a chili garlic sriracha type sauce. I think they're going to be very useful. Not the Trinidad pimento though.
No, although we think we got one Trinidad pepper plant potentially. We got to try it.
More like it.
It's developing peppers that aren't ripe yet, but excuse me.
They look a little different, but they look more like they should be. These are clearly crossed with a Thai or a cayenne or something.
But they're pretty tasty.
They're very tasty. I think they're crossed with a Thai.
But we have a ton of them, and we will see about making a pepper sauce video, maybe Asian style pepper sauce video on using these. We have a whole lot more green ones coming up. So, and I haven't even gotten to the garden ones, although the ones in the greenhouse are doing better.
So a sambal or a sriracha is probably the direction we're moving with those.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. Hello, Laura from Green Raven, and yeah, so I did pick a bunch of those red, I guess Thai-ish type peppers from our greenhouse, probably crossed. Did that last night, I want to say, and then this morning we had to move the chickens. That's our Sunday morning deal. We move them every Sunday morning, but then this afternoon we went to Jamie's house and helped him process Peking ducks, which we've never processed ducks before. And he just started doing ducks. I think this year he's processed some before.
He did some Muscovies that were larger.
Yeah.
This was a larger batch.
Yeah, so we actually only got halfway through this batch because it does take longer to process ducks.
Definitely, yeah, cleaning them up and
it's harder to pluck.
Defeathered is a reasonable amount of work.
Yeah, actually, because their feathers are waterproof, scalding them doesn't work. So we were trying a method with using hot wax.
Hot wax dip and scald, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Which worked pretty well, but it was definitely still took a bunch of time of cleaning. Takes quite a bit of wax. It was a new process for all of us, so we're just figuring it out. Not sure if we got it perfect, but yeah. But
we're working on it, and the whole team was working on it. So here's a picture of the duck processing team.
The ducks came out really nice, so they're I mean they're going to be great.
They're going to be good. I love eating ducks.
We didn't get it. We were just hanging out. So
yeah,
we were mostly there to pick up our chickens, but when we heard they're going to do ducks, we said, "Can we hang out? Shoot a few pictures."
So yeah, Jamie and Sasha, these are their ducks and their 2 kids, and they had a neighbor come help, and then we came and helped as well. So everybody was involved. At the end, we got some pictures of Jamie breaking down the ducks, which they had really, if you look at that meat, nice red meat.
Which is exactly the way it should be.
Yeah, so.
If it isn't dark red, like redder than beef, more like a buffalo or game meat, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Because they eat a lot of greens, a lot of iron. Should be red, dark, tender.
Yeah, so those are the 2 breasts they cut off, and then the leg thigh combos that he cut off from 1 duck.
Large chicken plucker doesn't seem to work. When they tried the Muscovies, they tried to pluck them and they ran it forever. It really didn't pluck them. It was a total mess.
Part of it was the scalding doesn't work on ducks, because if you think they're waterproof, chickens, they're not waterproof. So the scalding gets in there and opens up their I guess feather pores and releases the feathers easier. Ducks, the water just doesn't get through all that waterproof, the waterproof feathers. So what you do is you actually have, and we'll have this on video, but you melt a specific type of wax mixed with water, and you know, that's pretty darn hot, and you basically scald them in that, and then chill them, and the chilling them has makes the feathers, like it clumps the feathers up, so you can pull the wax off, and it pulls the feathers off with it. It is a little tougher to do, but yeah, it
pulls out most of the feathers, so it's a decent process. I'm sure it would work with chickens too, but there's no need. Yeah, so the plucker doesn't work commercially. I'm unaware of how they do it, if they use some form of a wax dip or if they steam them. They might do some form of a steaming that penetrates better than a hot bath.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
know.
really know. And then, of course, you use mechanical methods, but
Yeah. So this was the first time trying the hot wax method,
so if
and
anybody knows
yeah,
good best methods,
if you raise meat ducks,
we're
yeah,
interested. Jamie's still, up in the air on what the best method is.
yeah,
Ducks process and cost, they cost quite a bit to process. They cost quite a bit to purchase in a store. So growing them saves a lot of money, but figuring out that there takes a little more work is also
I saw
part of it.
Jaegers. Yeah, yeah. So we have a couple new people.
Store-bought ducks pretty similar, and compared like store-bought rabbit's terrible. Store-bought duck and commercial duck, a lot of it grows in Michigan. The maple leaf duck, and then a lot of it grows Long Island ducklings. There's 3 major farms there, 3 huge farms.
There's some upstate New York ducks too.
Yeah, well then there's Hudson Valley.
Yeah.
Duck foie gras, which grows a bigger specialty duck, but they sell really nice meat from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's duck's great. It's one of our favorite things to eat, and grocery store duck's absolutely fine. Now, a wild duck is going to be a different. Probably going to roast it. It's going to be very different. I've not really had much experience with the wild duck or wild goose, but like any game, it's very, very different than the domestic.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that was a new experience. Jamie also had a couple other changes to his process because they don't pass, or as he calls it, transition as cleanly as chickens do. So, and what we mean by that, at the actual kill point, they take longer to for the nerves to really stop firing and things. So it does make it a little bit harder when you're trying to butcher. There's a couple methods on that as well.
I didn't think it was terrible. I mean,
it just took longer.
You have a period of time where muscles, once starved of oxygen, just need time to unwind and slow down. And I think chickens are kind of young and high strung. Ducks, I mean, they're sticking their head underwater. They fly longer. I think they have a better oxygen uptake, the darker red meat, and so it just takes a little longer for them to settle in. I didn't really think it was that bad, but they're going to hop around a little bit and just finish up. Yeah, if you like dark meat chicken, now dark meat duck tastes a lot more like beef or buffalo. It's because of all the grass they do eat grain, but they also eat a lot of grass.
They eat a lot of grains.
They have some mineral, like grass fed. That's why they're so healthy. That has some minerality to them, which is pleasant. It's not strong. They don't have a strong flavor, but they have a very meaty flavor. In fact, you're going to think it's beef or land animal, not bird. So if you like that, or you're not a big chicken fan but you love beef, the other thing is you can cook it rare or medium rare, or you can cook it a little bit bloody.
They don't have the same health issues.
No, and you're gonna get something very much like eating a fairly tender steak. Not the fat marbling; it's lean. But if you like to roast it, so roast it for an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, whatever, till it tenderizes, and the breast meat's not going to be pink. It's going to be gray and fully cooked, but it's going to be roast, and it's going to be like a really meaty, nice, but more tender and juicy turkey. It's going to be, again, meat.
More red meat.
Yeah. So think of it very much like eating beef.
Yeah.
But there's a poultry quality, and there's a leanness to it also. So.
Yeah, and some of my favorite things, either confit duck, the legs, usually, or when you have the skin rendered down on the duck breast and it's crispy.
Yeah, and we've gone through. If you go back to some previous, I think more of these Sunday night lives, we had some discussions on cooking duck, but it might be hard to find. Yeah, cook them one way or the other. One way is cook them medium rare or less than medium rare, or cook them all the way. Don't cook them in the middle. They get tough. If you're cooking them long and slow, they'll slow down and they'll tenderize, and you can kind of pull the meat apart. If you're cooking them quickly, cook them quick and don't overcook them, and they'll stay tender. And that has to do with the fat properties. So yeah, you can chop them up and you can quick fry them. That's fine.
Yeah.
The skin wise, the fat, make sure you render it down. So actually what I do with the breast, if I'm cooking just chicken breast or turkey breast, I'm sorry, duck breast, is I start a cast iron pan or a heavy pan on low, put just enough oil or fat in it to prevent the skin from sticking. When it's on like low or medium, I put the duck breast down in the pan and I leave it at medium, high until it browns and it starts rendering down the fat, because you want to take that fat pad and it will actually melt out so that it comes down up against the skin. It'll start to lightly brown and crisp. And then only at the end, like 80% of the time, I cook it on that fat pad, and then I flip it over and I just finish it for 15 or 20% of the time on the meat just to brown it off, and then it's ready to go, and that will render it down crispy. You can even render it first, chill it, and then you can finish it up like in a restaurant. I'll take that time to be a little attentive to it, and then I'll throw them in a pan and just finish them crispy in a pan and in the oven. You can put cross hatches or light slash marks through it, just piercing the skin but not the fat, to help it render out a little better. You can do that when you're roasting. Chinese duck, when they do like the Peking or Beijing style duck, goes through a couple of methods. They actually steam it or blanch it, cook it, and then fry it crispy.
Hi,
so there's 3 steps, because the first step is getting that fat to yield during the roasting process. The next step is getting it cooked, and then the last step is making sure the heat comes up enough that skin goes crispy and brown, and it's like eating pork cracklings. The fat is as good as bacon fat.
Yes.
You should save every bit of fat,
yes.
And either render it in as a clear fat or as a roasted fat, and then use it for cooking.
Yeah.
Potatoes is probably the best thing. French fries or home fry style potatoes. But duck fat, use it just like you would bacon fat.
It is, duck fat is amazing.
Make popovers with it. There's a lot of things you can do with it.
Yeah.
And it's a little healthier than like the heavy beef fat. So
Linda said it sounds like ostrich that she wants.
Very much like ostrich. Yes. You treat it pretty much the same way.
Yeah.
Dark red meat, lean. Yeah. Same method, although you cook it.
I've never had ostrich.
I've had ostrich burgers, ostrich. You could get ostrich steaks and stuff. That
Tracy says she's getting ready to butcher 10 Muscovy.
Have you done it before?
Yeah.
Any advice?
The other thing that Jamie said he researched was for ducks, because they have 3 sets of feathers that come in. There's certain times where one set of feather comes in before the next set starts, where you will have fewer pin feathers if you are butchering at certain weeks. I think it was like 7 weeks.
That was new to me. It makes total sense.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
So I'm used to getting duck breasts commercially at different sizes. Young duckling or whole ducklings for roasting.
So these were like
smaller
12.
breasts. These are kind of a medium to large breast. And then some of the Hudson Valley foie gras ones are just a really big bird and they mature them more. So all of a sudden I realized why we get different market forms, because it has to do with, that feathering
when the feathering
and
comes in. So I think it was like 7 weeks, 12 and a half weeks is when we were butchering, and then there's one more window that you butcher in 18 or something. I don't remember exactly, but he was looking it up, and I guess that's the way the Chinese butcher is at these specific week times, so that they don't have so many pin feathers.
I'm going to guess commercially they're doing the same thing.
Probably.
I just had no idea. That's not something they train us. Cooking wise, is we get them processed. That's not a concern in the kitchen of getting the feathers off, so nobody tells you that.
People are saying they're getting hungry. Von Terrace in the room, by the way. Other people have joined in. Tracy, White Picket Fence, Brainstorm Acres, welcome.
Swampy Acres has been here for a while.
Yep. So you guys, thanks for joining us tonight. Yeah. So we had our first experience with, and I would say ducks.
Duck as a whole roasted or duck breast is less expensive than, say, filet mignon or really nice porterhouse,
but just as good.
I would say it's just as good. It's just as fancy. So, and it's probably a little bit on the healthier side. So if you're looking for that special occasion, duck might be. And there's plenty of videos on how to prepare it. But I would say,
I think
smoked duck, whole smoked duck, or otherwise amazing smoked duck breast. Also.
So the other thing, I think after they hit that 3rd feathering out, you're not going to have to worry about the pin feathers as much. because they're not getting another set in. So you can basically butcher anytime after that. But yeah, so the 6-month-olds are probably absolutely fine on that. But it was kind of interesting on the timing as they're growing, where you can more easily butcher them just based on how the feathers come in. But yeah, have not, but I've watched a lot of videos. So
yeah,
good luck with your first one. It's interesting.
We did a young goose a couple of years ago.
Yep, we did.
I don't think we paid any attention to
timing. We don't have ducks here, so we went to our friend Jamie's house to help him with his, and happened to be on the day we were picking up Cornish cross from him. So we decided to hang out for a few hours to help him with his ducks, and then get our Cornish cross from him, which is the first time we're doing Cornish cross because we didn't have too many chickens going broody this spring. So we usually use our own egg layers, the extras or the boys, and use them for meat, but we didn't have too many at the right timing. So we're running out of freezer chickens. So we now have 25 Cornish cross that'll be due. And I actually have, these aren't our Cornish that we brought home. This is, they had split out their Cornish cross into a tractor. They're, I don't want to say about, these guys are about 3 weeks old, and ours are about 4 or 5 weeks now.
4.5, yeah.
So they moved theirs out into a tractor to split them from ours, so it was easier.
They have at least 75.
Did they get that many?
I think that was the cut of the break. So we were helping them make the break for the next price reduction and then getting somewhere around. So I think they got at least 100, if not a little over that.
I don't know. So, I know they were originally doing that, but then I was thinking they were actually changing their numbers a little bit.
They might have favored bumping things around because of scheduling too. So we were talking about doing this in the spring originally. So I don't know what their total was, but it's a good number for much of their year, or at least 6 months.
Yeah. So we did get ours home. I finished the coop for them last night. So yeah, a little last minute, but they are now moved in to their coop. I don't think I put a picture up here yet, but there will be a whole video on that coming out in the next couple weeks. So I got to go through all that footage of building our coop for them, which is pretty simple. So I basically went on the keep it simple kind of Saladin styles, but with modifications and smaller. But so we now have Cornish cross that will be butchering early October. So Linda might have been asking Tracy about how long she's had these ducks. But okay, so by the way, they have a ton of different types of poultry at their house.
So they're primarily meat. They have some gardens, but they're really focused as a very small homestead meat raising.
Yeah.
So yeah, they have a lot of poultry. They have had hogs. They don't right now. They have some sheep.
They have. I didn't get pictures of the sheep out here.
So yeah, right now it's mostly poultry and some sheep.
Yeah. So they have their geese, which I'm not sure if they raise them for meat or if they just would raise them for guarding. I think.
Oh, the geese. Yeah.
The geese. I think they're primarily guards.
Just hanging out.
They're hanging out. There's 3 of them. They definitely tell you off when you're not supposed to be there. They have, anybody know what this little bird is up here sitting on the top of one of their runs? If you can figure that one out, I will keep going on the others and I'll come back to that. They do have a variety of different ducks for eggs. They have their chickens. I didn't get pictures of all their chickens in here, but anybody, I'm going to go back to, where is it? Yeah, that one. Go back here. Anybody have a guess on what this little bird is? It can be used as meat. I think they're using it as pets. They have about 4 of them, I want to say.
Maybe more.
4 or 5. I don't. It wasn't that many.
Yeah. That's a new
they all have names. This one's name is Hedwig, so any Harry Potter fans would know that. I think they even have a Sirius Black as well, which is another Harry Potter reference, so their kids named them. Yes, Tina. It is a pigeon. So pigeon, that is a domestic pigeon. It can be used.
Domestic diving pigeon, they said.
Yeah. Pigeons. Yep, definitely. They have some that are black and some that this one is the white with the speckles, so that's why they named him Hedwig, because Hedwig was a snow owl, yeah, snowy owl, in the
So
Harry
that would be
Potter.
a homing. Yeah, it could be probably trained as a homing pigeon.
Yeah,
Being it's a diving pigeon, it's yeah.
but some people will raise them as meat as well. So
anybody know in France what they're called?
have a
Well,
different,
no.
not
In
France.
France, they're called pigeon or pigeon. Do you know what people when they're raised for meat and commercially sold in the U.S. Do you know what the name for it is?
They have a different name that they sell it under in restaurants.
So pigeon is served very common, and these pigeons are very different than your
Yes.
city dwelling pigeon. Um, if anybody's wondering.
Yeah.
I mean, they're different, but they're not. But they are.
They're probably a little
It's not.
cleaner.
It's not your gray. Your gray park
Yeah,
pigeon.
yeah. No, they're probably a little cleaner. But another name for what you would see them at, like in the restaurant. Anybody know?
Not served a lot, although it's around. It's a good
The
item.
higher end restaurants, probably.
There you go, squab. My
Yep.
mom got that one.
Yep.
And Tracy. Yeah, squab is the same thing. Squab is really nice because
flying rat.
they're basically they're a nice size where you can serve a half. I find you can serve a half roasted, split roasted. Really, it's a really good size entree. And serving the whole thing and not having to chicken's a little too big. A Cornish, you need to serve the whole thing. Quail, you need to serve multiples.
Yeah, right.
2 to 3, which 3 is hard to serve on an entree. 2 is not so bad. So it is a nice item, and a domestic one honestly tastes a lot like chicken. It's just a good size factor.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and another thing I learned was that the meat pigeons that they raise, you want to harvest them before they start flying, because they get really tough when they start flying.
Makes sense, and I don't think they let them fly in a meat setting. They're just
probably
encaged.
But you still harvest them pretty young. Is basically what it comes down to. So
and they're very tender.
Yeah,
and they're lean. Similar meat to chicken. They're not particularly dark at all.
Yeah, so we had a lot of fun learning about their different poultry, basically, and they have, like Mike said, they have sheep as well. So I got to meet their sheep. We'll probably get a little clip of that in their video when I get to it. There's, I think, 3. That's the 3rd video on my list to do, but I'll work on one tomorrow morning, I think, a little bit. Got to get the Hootenanny video out still. Anyway, so yeah, lived in a 2nd floor apartment. Well, we didn't have any pigeons when we lived in New York.
Well, there was some, but not heavy.
Not where
flocking. We had a woodsy area strip across from us, so they would have preferred that than the heat of the concrete.
Probably.
And brick on our building.
We were a 9th floor up, overlooking the Bronx, basically, just north of the Bronx. So
yeah, but we didn't. We had birds that showed up there, but nothing really hung out.
Not very
much.
often. Not usually that high up.
They didn't permanently nest or poop all over the deck.
No, we didn't really get that. And we grew a lot of food up there too. I mean, decent amount for our 20-foot balcony. So yeah, I think that's been our day. We finally, we didn't get home. We had dinner over there. We packed up the Cornish cross and drove home with them. And I will say they are stinky birds. Yeah. So they're probably not going to be
Well, they eat a lot, so they're just intestinally processing a lot and quickly.
Everything goes through their body pretty quickly, it seems. So we did get them into our tractor this evening. We're doing that at like 8:15 when we got home. So now they haven't been on forage yet because they're only like 4.5 weeks or so. So this is their first night out of a coop. They haven't had heat in a while, but this is their first night out, so we'll see how they do.
They're going to do fine.
And then
the low is 60.
Yeah.
They'll just huddle together if they're a little bit on the cool side.
Yeah. And we already gave them food and water, so they're happy. And my thought is, got to teach them to eat the greens. So put the food directly on the greens, and hopefully they start learning to eat some of our forage too. So they're directly on our turnips basically right now. Turnips and radishes for the most part we have as chicken forage. So hopefully they like their greens. Tina got her first egg from one of her pullets. It's tan speckled. Oh, that's a new color. Um, do you know which chicken it's from? Is the question. And curious as we had no pigeons, and then a huge pile of gravel was
That's
delivered,
weird.
and
Huh.
it's gonna be listening to move in and stay.
Huh.
Yeah, well, I mean, they do like cityscapes, so yeah, that just.
Hey, they're gray. I guess they like. I don't know what it is about them.
No, I remember when I did my study abroad in the Netherlands and Amsterdam, of course, had a ton of them on their main square and things. But I think, the other thing is people feed them in the parks and all that as
New
well.
York
So
and when I was in Rome and Venice and stuff, and all over Europe, of course, all the cities are loaded with them, any public space. But New York's the same.
So that's been our main thing today. I'll get some more, probably get some more pictures up on Instagram of the new chickens moved in. We only have 30 chickens total, right?
Something like that.
Something like
Some
that.
of them are temporarily boarding there.
Yeah, they're only going to be here for a month. Or just, about a month. Yeah. Maybe a barred rock. Okay. Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe next year we can try the Freedom Rangers and compare them to the Cornish Cross from this year. Because now we have a meat coop to raise them in.
Yeah, depending on where we're at on chicken needs. But we kind of target about one chicken a week.
Yeah.
Not every week we have one, but sometimes you might have two or have somebody over.
In that case, it's only getting us through half a year.
Yeah, so I think our target is between 50 and 75 chickens is potentially our meat use, and then the remainder are either for breeding or eggs or just hanging out.
Oh, yes, chicken math turns into coop math too, white picket fence. I think this was the 6th coop that I built. I built some with my dad. My dad helped me a little bit at the beginning with this one, which was helpful just to have an extra set of hands holding pieces in places as you're trying to connect them. But yeah, this is our 6th coop and probably one of the simpler ones. I think it's even simpler than our nursery tractors. So, and what I'll do is, like I said, I'll put a video together on there, but I'll try to list all the materials needed for this. It's also made of basically split 2x4s. So I'm making my own 2x2s instead of buying them, which aren't quite the same shape as what you get in the store. It's the first coop I've made like ground level, kind of like a nursery coops, that's just made of 2x2s and then a couple, like 4 2x3s for the runners. And I do think it's strong enough. It doesn't even need any cross bracing because all the welded wire, not welded wire, the hardware cloth, we have 1/2 inch hardware cloth around the whole thing, basically holds it square so it's not shifting around so much. So it is, I would say, pretty strong. Not too heavy. I probably shouldn't pull it on my own right now, just with some weight restriction and mainly awkwardness restrictions. I'm not supposed to stress my stomach that much right now, but the two of us did it together and it was super easy. So one person could do it on their own in normal conditions. So I think it won't be too hard. The hardest thing will just be not running over the chickens that don't like to move very much.
They're big enough that they're gonna they won't get trapped very easily. They're gonna have to move themselves along.
Yeah, but
they're not like the little ones that you
but they're
really
lazier. They're lazier. They like to lay down. So
they're gonna get bumped into and they'll move.
So we'll have that. We'll see how they do moving. We also have a removable, not 2 layers of roofing. One is just the fencing, and one is the corrugated plastic. So on top of that, and that's completely removable, so you can see where they are when you move them, which was part of the challenge to moving some of them. Sometimes when you're in like the nursery tractor, tend to run them over if you can't see them very well. But yeah, so we'll see how it goes. And trying to see if there was any other questions there. Carrie says she found a pink egg with brown speckles last week. That's strange. Don't have any new layers, but sometimes I think they just have odd eggs every once in a while. Like if their color coding's not quite right on them or whatever. I've noticed that. Oh, cattail. Someone joined us. Otherwise, I guess the next thing is, are there any questions, cooking questions for Mike? It's already halfway through, more than halfway through the show. Should we do some Ask the Chef questions? We already talked somewhat about ducks and what to do there. What do you do with squab, by the way?
Usually people roast them, or they same things you do with chicken. Split them, spatchcock them, or where you split them in half and pull out the vertebrae, and you can roast them. You could roast them whole, but yeah, treat them just like a chicken.
Yeah. So hello to ASL Harvard Homestead. Yeah, so any other poultry questions? The geese and the ducks are very similar. We've done geese before. We have video on them.
I think they're raising and everything else. They're much bigger on the geese, but I think they're pretty similar.
Mike, have you been told not to make any particular food due to pregnancy?
We're not doing things that are too spicy.
Yeah, I avoided some jalapenos the other day, but I've been eating some spicy stuff. I haven't really had any major cravings. There's certain things that I definitely like. I like cheese right now, but it's not like monster cravings where I'm gonna go nuts if I don't get it, or complete aversions to food. Some of the brassicas are a little bit harder for me to digest when I'm nauseous, but otherwise, I've been craving, I would say, if there's any craving, not like crazy craving, but it's actually been probably fattier foods, cheeses,
pizza.
And pizza. I do like pizza.
Because it has carbs, it's full flavored, it's salty, it's got cheese, it's got meat on it potentially. So yeah, it's a high intensity, higher calorie density. So that probably makes some sense.
Yeah. So protein and cheese. I haven't been craving carbs so much, and carbs didn't help when I'm feeling nauseous either. It was more the protein stuff and the cheesy stuff.
What's the difference between pork chop and pork steak? I think it's mostly marketing terms. Chop is usually a loin, either bone in, bone out, coming from the rib. Pork steak could come from anywhere because the steak has no, but even a chop has pretty limited, I think, legal definition. Yeah. So yeah, now sometimes they get up into the shoulders and or the ends of the loins where you get multiple muscle groups and you get some bone coming through from either the shoulder blade or coming into the hip. And that could, they could cut it as a bigger piece, but they might call it as a pork steak. I think it's truly a marketing term to add value to it and make it sound more worthwhile, but I would ignore those terms as interchangeable and unnecessary. You're looking at what you're buying, it's if you're buying at a grocery store. So yeah, nothing.
Not much
that
difference.
I'm aware
of. How about left a batch of no knead bread dough or no knead dough out for 2.5 days. Tried to make a flatbread type thing. Any other suggestions?
Well, so doing a sourdough or doing a natural ferment where you're not putting a lot of extra, prepared yeast in. If it's not too warm, summer's not so great. A 2-day or a 2.5 day ferment bread isn't uncommon. If you do a pre-ferment or you have some bread dough left from the day before, you leave it out. You make a pre-ferment, then you build a sourdough and you go through the process and then you make a loaf.
Yeah.
However, you can over-ferment. Over-fermentation breaks down your dough because the yeast has to eat sugar. At some point, it's going to access most of the available sugar, and so it's going to use up a lot of the carbohydrates. It's going to start to get sour. It's going to slow down in its giving of gas. It's going to start producing more alcohol, which eventually toxifies itself and kills the yeast and becomes less active. So that means when you do your punch down, you're forming, and then you put it into the oven, you're not going to have enough gas build up, and you're not going to get the oven spring from the holes and the expansion of the gas. Now, the more you let it go, the more you you overhaul it or you do a knead or a punch down, you're going to go from really large holes if you do it straight out to smaller holes. If you do it 2 times, you're going to get even finer holes by that processing and waiting for the extra gas. To make a flatbread, some of them have very little yeast or have soda or yeast and soda both. Some of them don't really go through much of a hold time, so you get the yeasty flavor and a little activity. A lot of the flatbreads actually have to do with hydration. So a very wet loaf bread goes up to 85% hydration, but lavash and some of you need a sheet, and they're gonna spread out into a pan, and they're gonna make a yeasty flatbread, or kind of a focaccia, or even wetter. It could be like 85% hydration or a little more. So that means for every pound of flour, you're going to have 85% of that in water. So it's almost 1-to-1. I think you can push, some things might be almost 1-to-1. Oh, you're really getting up into batters at that point. Yeah. So if you're looking at flatbreads, you're looking at hydration probably more than time. And a lot of the bread books will, I think what I have for bread books. A lot of the bread books will obviously have sections on flatbreads, on breadsticks, on crackers, and they can have other things added to them, but you can look at the differences.
I just keep thinking my favorite flatbread, which is the Trinidadian roti style.
Roti. Well, so roti Indian style flatbread, some are yeast, some have soda in them, some can have both. And of course, soda is going to taste like soda. It's going to have a bitterness to it, and it's chemically leavened. Whereas others have yeast, and they usually sit for 2 or 3 hours. They go through a primary ferment. They go into a portioning, and then they get stretched out. And think about a naan as a yeast bread, but it goes to a portioning. It's fairly soft and wet, and then it gets slapped on the side of a hot stone brick oven and cooked very, very quickly. So yeah, hydration, I would say, is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah. Linda, you said you used to nibble on peanut butter with honey on crackers, and my cat just swiped at my arm.
That's
when nauseous.
That's rich.
I would do.
It's got a little everything in there.
No, yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's saltines. People said saltines, keep saltines by your bed and all that. The thing that settled my stomach was cheese sticks.
I was trying. There's somebody who's recently had a baby like 6 months ago,
and that's not what I would have if I was sick normally.
At Market next to me, and she's same thing. She said she ate a lot of cheese and protein. Protein is what she preferred.
Yeah.
Adam, don't ever be afraid to ask the butcher. They actually most of the time want to answer questions, especially if you're going to a butcher. If you're going to a grocery store butcher, who knows? They should be accommodating, but you never know. But remember, there are only so many cuts, so many muscles, large muscle groups on an animal, but there are many, many ways to slice and dice, and many more ways to name them. So market cuts and names that are regional, national, language derived, or by actually physically cutting the same muscles in different ways, you get hundreds and hundreds of variation. It's called market forms, or it's marketing. It's getting the right amount of money, or getting the right pieces for the common uses. And so there's a lot to it, but don't get too worried about it.
Yep. And Tina, can chickens eat old scobies? I have heard some. I don't make kombucha, so
they're pretty robust.
I have heard. What I would do is I wouldn't be giving it to them as their only choice. I would let them make the choice on whether or not they like it.
And if they want it and they like it and need it, they'll eat it.
Because we put basically all our vegetable matter in with our chickens. They don't eat like the corn husks, but anything that they don't eat just
not
gets
a
in
big
the soil.
fan on peppers, although some birds will eat peppers, even the sweet peppers a little bit.
Yeah,
corn husks they don't eat. They don't eat white potatoes, especially
uncooked.
Uncooked. They don't eat avocado pits or skins.
No, or citrus peels.
They don't like ragweed. They don't like, which the things we want most to go away, they don't eat. Poison ivy, ragweed.
Oh, no, they ate some poison ivy last time.
A little bit, but they don't go for it quick.
Yeah.
And they don't eat plantain, which we don't mind the plantain really, but they don't eat it.
Yeah.
Most other
They weren't
things,
eating the yarrow much either.
Yarrow, they're not too big on that.
Yeah, but it really depends. I mean, as long as they have a choice, anything they don't like, they can leave behind. So, and it just builds your soil. So I would just give it all to them in a mix and let them make their choice. Adam also asked, what breed of pigs would you recommend
We're
from a
not
chef point of
farmers,
view?
but I've cut whole hogs a bunch. I've worked with a whole bunch of people that have raised hogs, and I've been serving fine quality pork that's really rivaling quality of beef for quite a bit. So people think that pork's cheap. It is cheap, and they think therefore it's lower value than other meat cuts that are expensive, i.e. beef and game and whatever else. Not really the case. It's because they mature quickly, they have a wider variety of feed, and they have large litters, so they can reproduce quickly. So it's a physical and mechanical process of abundance that makes them low cost, not that they're actually yielding phenomenal quality. And if you're using heritage breeds and some of these things, I really do think you can cherish them and eat them just like a steak, and in some way, they're very, very desirable. So
I like pork better than beef anyway.
Yeah, I like beef, but I think I eat more pork because it's more versatile. Beef, you can run out of things to do with it real quick. All your extra trim, you can make stew, you can make ground beef. Ground beef can go in about 6 items, maybe. I mean, you can make burgers, you can make chili, you can make meat sauces with tomato. You can make a loaf for a seasoned loaf for Salisbury.
Meatballs.
You can make casseroles. There's a few other things, and then you're kind of like, all right, I got ground beef. What do I do with it? It's not as useful. It's less expensive. Pork can be diced and stir fried. It can be cubed. It can be made into stews. And when you grind it, you can do fresh. You can make all the same things you can do with pork. Plus, you can make all different types of seasoned sausages. And because of the fat and stuff, it's much more conducive to high quality sausage production. So pork, the lesser cuts, less is thrown away, and it's a lot easier to use. But as far as varieties, I think that a heritage blend, I'm not too picky on them. If you can get a heritage blend of some sort, it's going to be darker. So there's a couple ways to raise pigs and hogs. You can have very pink, very light, almost white meat, and very lean. It tends to get a little tough. That's what was served in the 80s and preferred. We thought it was healthy. Yeah. Prior to that, we had a little fattier and a little pinker.
There was a Salatin video that he collects old farm, like, how-to books and stuff like that. And he picked one up from, I think it was the 20s or 30s, on how to raise pork. And what they went for at that point was the well-exercised red muscles. Get your pork out moving so that you have these nice red rich muscles marbled a little bit,
I had a culinary book that was, I think it was the one I used last time I taught an intro class.
Okay.
And it said, we teach specs. It's a purchasing on specs and how do you purchase. And it says for pork you should look for lean, white or pink fleshed pork. They're showing, and they have a picture. And I was like, all right, see this page in your book? It was almost like a rip it out type moment. It's like, see this, cross it out. Everything they said, ignore it. This was obviously published about 10 to 15 years ago. This is absolutely the exact opposite of what any good chef is going to tell you. Run away from that. So, and it can get kind of tough or gristly and different things. In fact, it got to a point in the 80s where they were so underfeeding them. There's a condition where they had too little fat and it changed the muscle composition. And it was actually a disease. Yeah. That's how lean they got them. And that just had to do with breeding and feeding. So I think if you can get a pinker, more developed, more marbled, a little more exercised, and a nice fat, they can be overly fat and not helpful, but a good 1 to 2 inches of fat on the outside to the skin in some areas is okay. You're going to lean it down, but it goes to other things, and then as much marbling as possible. I have seen pork that's marbled to a level like prime beef, and let me tell you, it does the same thing. It keeps it moist. Whether you're cutting that fat off from around the outside, it's still keeping it tender, moist, and juicy on the inside. So common breeds of heritage things are people talk about the Berkshire,
Yeah.
and the Berkshire sort of became a premium, and it's an old style. It's very nice. They're a little harder to raise, so they're a little more expensive.
We've done the red wattle and
We've
the
done the red wattle. The
Mangalitsa.
red wattle can be on the leaner side, but it has a nice large loin. So when you're breeding, they're looking for loin size, length, because the length gives more chops because they have different numbers of ribs. But really, how big the loin eye is, the qualities of the meat to fat ratio, the size of the legs and the hams and the picnics, and then the overall finishing weight. And then its demeanor, whether it does well on forage and feed. Is it sociable? Does it like being outdoors?
Yeah.
Does it not like being indoors? Does it, a lot of the pigs will eat the tails off of other pigs in captivity. So they want a short-tailed pig, or they dock the tails on the pigs. The only reason is for that I'm aware of. They almost, they'll chew on the ears. Are they sociable? And do they work well inside or outside to, feed? That's what commercially they're looking for. But Berkshire is very popular. Duroc is very popular. Berkshire Duroc blends or heritage blends, which balance out some of the challenges of Berkshire.
Which is what a lot of traditional farmers would have actually done, is they breed towards the specs they wanted. It didn't matter if they were purebred or
It's
not.
It's like breeding any animal. They would introduce animals. If they felt like they wanted a bigger ham, they'd introduce breeding pairs for a larger ham or a longer body. If they wanted more fat, they'd try and get a fattier pig, and they would continually try and create a balance.
To mix in, yeah.
Old Spot and a lot of the English ones, are have done really well. The Pratts have raised Old Spots, really like them. So I've had access to Old Spot, Red Wattle, Duroc, Berkshire, and what heritage blends.
Mangalitsa.
And then I've done a little bit with Mangalitsa. Mangalitsa is the extra hairy Hungarian pigs. They really are charcuterie pig. They have a small loin eye. They're very, very fatty, and they make awesome sausage and hung meat. I think you're going to be a little disappointed if you're looking for. I would not do a pig roast with that. I would not necessarily look for a lot of great chops out of it. That's really a.
And then at the
chef or charcuterie are playing around. Well, those, they had red wattles, and then they had 2 lard pigs, guinea pigs.
Yeah.
Which are small. They're super, super crazy fatty, much smaller. They eat like crazy, and
different kind of fat. It was
really super soft, almost melting at body temperature. Our body, their body.
Yeah. Don't have problems in grass-fed kune on pasture with eating tails. No, as long as
most of them, once you separate them out, they have a lot less problems.
They have more space and all that too.
Yeah,
they have.
It's like when you put too many people in the city, they eat each other's tails.
Yeah.
It's that's a domestication issue that they're trying to get around. I don't, some are more docile, like the lard pigs. The guinea hogs are super, super docile.
Yeah.
And don't escape as easily, from what I understand, and just are easier to work with. I know some people are concerned about the really big pigs that could finish. A breeder could finish up in 1,000-pound plus, or the hogs are finishing up in the 300-pound range, and they can be a little more aggressive breeds. Some people are concerned about their family and their kids, and are they going to be interacting with a 300-pound pig, and they want to move to a more docile pig.
But the other thing you have to keep in mind is, if you're processing your own pigs, and you don't have a whole lot of help with the weight or whatnot, can you handle the weight of the pig as you're processing?
Well, and you can just pigs. You can take them whenever you want, so you can take them earlier.
But yeah, you do have to keep that in mind, though, as you're raising and processing and timing it all out. Is how big of a pig do you want as well? The one advantage to some of the smaller breeds, even though they are lard breeds, is that they're just smaller.
They're much smaller, but there's also the meat to fat ratio is way different.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, well, they're easier. They take twice as long to grow.
Yeah.
But they forage well, and they eat anything, and so there's some advantages on that. I would not, my personal opinion, because there was talk with the roads, they like the guinea hogs, would they just raise guinea hogs? And some people do that. That would not be my. If I was raising 3 or 4 other meat hogs, I might put a guinea hog in for lard, because I'm just feel like we wouldn't use that as much as the other ones. So I think if you're going to a butcher Ask them for heritage pork. Ask them, do they have some heritage breed or blend. And they're not always terribly much more expensive. They'll be a little more, definitely more than your value cut, but consider it more like a steak, and they're going to be way, way less than beef. And don't get too excited about it. Say, I'm looking for more well marbled. I want to eat it like a steak or whatever. I think things like that work nice.
So if I took a curly hair pig to the butcher, just tell them all I want is sausage and different flavorings.
So yeah, I mean that for a mangalitsa or the curly ones, I would still take the loin out and use it for small chops or a roast. It should be well marbled. I'd take the legs off, and they'd be ideal for prosciuttos.
Yeah.
Smoked hams. They're gonna make a really, really nice ham. Whatever your usual cure. So I wouldn't grind the legs. No. Just assume that everything's going to go into some form of salting, curing, smoking, brining, pickling. And then all the rest of the stuff, instead of getting excited about kind of all the other things, I mean, the bacon's going to be fine, but I would grind a lot more of it. Or if I'm like, well, I'm not going to eat 2 hams, I might grind part of it. Mm-hmm. And then the rest, but you can also take out the top copa along the neck, and it makes an amazing.
That's like this muscle down the back.
Yeah, it runs all the way along the back.
Yeah.
So that's a whole muscle cure, and it does best with and that could be a hung item. You could make a pancetta, which is basically hung bacon, cured but not smoked bacon. So if you're looking for look to the old world European style processing, you're going to dig in for that. And I think you get amazing results. But some people can't eat enough of that. There's a lot of time and money involved. But if you really want showpieces, that might be a method. They're also very cold hardy. They're Hungarian. They're heavy coated. They look woolly like a sheep and look fuzzy. They're actually just wiry. Like other pig hair, very, very wiry. Yeah. And somewhat deceptive. Some people are concerned. So a lot of the reason we do pink pigs commercially, your IBP, whatever, Swift, pink pigs, they want very light, nice skin because they're doing pig roast. Although most of the time when you scald them and scrape them, they're pretty well pink underneath for the most part anyways. But yeah, they want consistency. So a large commercial operation, they want to likely grow them indoors, grow them on a consistent feed, and they have it down to a science. We give them this much feed, and we give them exactly this much time, and they should dial in at 200 to 215 pounds, and we're going to send them all off at a consistent time point at a very near consistent weight for the whole batch, so it's efficient. So the efficiency end, but the heritage ones, you have a little more flexibility, but they do better. A lot of them outside, they do better socially. Feed range. Some will eat grass and forage a lot better than others. Some don't do very well.
Better. Some will root through things versus grass. But yeah, and you do want to, I mean, I think if you're raising your own pigs, I think one thing to take into consideration is from the breeder, do they raise them on pasture or not? Because those pigs are used to
feed content. So my first red wattle that we got when we moved here, I got them through, I'm not sure exactly what farm. It was through basically a negotiant that did specialty meat. It was a red wattle. I read that they're awfully lean. This thing came in so marbled like a prime steak, so red and juicy. It was amazing. Some of the best pork I've eaten.
Yeah.
We got a red wattle from the Pratts last year, and it's really, really nice. And the flavor is incredible. It's a lot leaner. It's actually pulling more to spec. So I don't know what the other guy, if it was blended or what he was doing. We know that your general feed regime and your finish, like all animals, you can put on the weight, and he maybe just had a great finishing program. Maybe he had extra dairy and fruit or beer grains that he had access to, and he was loading them for 2 months on that, and it just marbled out. Yeah. So the wattle was not dry, and it wasn't without fat. It was just fine. And the other thing you could look at, is something we were talking about. I don't know if it was with the roads or somewhat with the Pratts were working on a grass-fed project or doing a lot more forage and grass with some of their pigs. The guinea hog, it was the roads with the guinea hogs. So you can maintain pigs better than any of your animals as their own storage. So if you don't have time to send them to butcher and you don't have space in your freezer and you don't need them, you can basically keep them as standing meat. And what they say, so you cut their feed way back, so they're still existing,
but they're not gaining.
They're not gaining, and so you can hold them a number of months, not forever, but you can hold them a number of months on a modest amount of feed that doesn't cost you a lot until you're more ready to use them at a time you can process or the market changes. If you want to, you can't hurry them up too much, but you can really pour on the feed and feed them as much as they can handle, and all the best stuff that you got laying around if you want to fatten them up and get them ready for, bulk them up. So the idea of being able to speed up and slow your process, quite a few months, can be a useful tool to prevent waste and excess cost.
Oh, so, man, you have coughs tonight. Any other questions about cooking or anything? I think we're coming to a good, maybe even a good stopping point, unless there's some other questions in here. But oh, I did want to go back to one thing. I'm looking back through comments. Carrie Bilton Rock Homestead said her neighbor said tuna helps her nauseousness. I could see that actually. However, canned tuna could be a little high in mercury, so
you gotta watch heavy metals.
Yeah, so tuna is a predatory fish, so it does build up in them a little bit more than others.
Well, the smaller tunas and the skipjacks and the albacore and things that you eat for canned tuna, they do measure it a little bit, and it is higher. But actually, the worst thing are your sushi grade tunas. They're larger fish. They're older.
That's true.
Those are the ones that can really pack it on. So yeah, avoiding sushi grade tuna, which you don't eat raw anyways, but those big tuna steaks, the swordfish, the shark, is actually really recommended.
Since most people are not actually eating a diet high in a lot of those fish, they pretty much at the OB's office will say now, like 1 can of tuna, I think is per week or something at most. So, and that's how most people eat their tuna. So yeah, you do have to watch some of that during pregnancy because of the mercury buildup, and that can be not good. Most of the things that they talk about limiting in pregnancy has more to do with the immune system being repressed, and if there's any pathogens potentially in the food that you're more susceptible to.
The problem with heavy metals is babies are putting a lot of fat. A lot of that fat is neuro, because the brain and all the neurons are surrounded by fat. They're 80% fat or something. So if you're having a very heavy fat uptake and building fat, the possibility of bringing that in, and then you kind of lock that stuff in there for a very long time, or sometimes nearly for life. So if that's close to your nerves or going into your brain, it becomes a lot more damaging than at other times in your life, where you can, it's not good, but you can deal with it a little better.
So there's different reasons for the different limitations.
Yeah, so watching some of those fish.
Yeah.
And that includes a lot of the oily fish.
Yeah.
And a lot of the lake fish, the Great Lakes fish. It's not nearly as polluted as it used to be, but like whitefish, Great Lakes whitefish, I wouldn't eat that when people are pregnant. It's still very high, and it's an oily fish. Yeah. So a lot of the oil, they're oil soluble, so they're taking that stuff up in their fat, or the things they're eating.
Storing it. Yep. So Carrie said on her hike yesterday saw a lot of second-year mullein plants.
We have a lot of this.
Yeah. We also, actually I was walking, went a little bit off the trail to where they used to have a driveway 2 doors down, like the drive to the back, and you could see all the second-year mullein plants out there. It's just harder to see the first-year ones because they don't send up the spike. We have like 2 or 3 in our backyard that are first-year plants growing. So so yeah, they are definitely up. And we actually got so dry that one of ours, I guess that's next door neighbor's property, but one of them had stopped. It looked like it was about to start dying or going to seed, stopped flowering. But with the rain this week, it opened up new flowers again. So it's back in flower, which I was surprised about.
Best way to run pasta through the KitchenAid, I would run it as dry as possible. There is a point where it'll either bog down the KitchenAid, or you can't roll it out, or it starts cracking. And I'm not talking about the surface drying out, but it's typically a firmer, drier dough than most people realize. So the stock answer is high protein bread flour or semolina 00 blend, approximately 1 pound and approximately 5 large eggs will get you very close. And yeah, and so that's and then run it through the
Thanks,
KitchenAid.
Tina.
Use additional flour to dust if it seems to be sticking either to the equipment or to itself or the sides after you've cut it. Other than that, it should work.
Yep.
Yeah.
So thank you, Tina. That was
Yeah.
sweet. I don't think we get many of those. That's fine. We don't promote it. But that is a super chat for those of you guys who don't know those. But that's cool. I think that was all the questions that came up, isn't it? Did we get any more? Saw your 1 year plant next to a 2 year plant. Yeah, you'll do that. You'll see that. So
we're on such sandy soil; they do really well.
Yeah.
And then we have a lot of farms where they've disturbed portions, or they've cut under power lines, or somebody goes through and kind of tills or bobcats a little bit, and they pop right up.
Yep. By the way, there are people who smoke mullein. I don't like smoking anything carbon related, but you can also burn it as incense to help with respiratory issues and things like that. So
it's a
that's
very
more
small
medicinal.
amount. It's a few puffs, and Daryl recommends. He has recommended for certain people, actually people with lung and closed lung issues, it helps. Amazingly, the smoke helps
open it up,
agitate and open up your lungs, but it's a very, very small amount. And so
you could actually do that just having something burning an incense near you as well, burning it in a bowl and having that wafting the smoke towards you, because you don't need that much to open up the lungs. So it's more of a medicinal plant. People also tend to call it the TP plant. Some people, the hairs on it do irritate their skin, but a lot of people will go, and hikers and stuff will use it for toilet paper because it is very soft and it has a nice big leaf to it. But so mullein plants are a nice, I just like identifying my different plants. I don't use them all, but we have the biggest one that started blooming recently here is the evening primrose, and it's now starting to go to seed somewhat. So I actually want to collect some seeds for the garden.
No, the goldenrod is finishing. It's actually
there's some varieties just starting.
Yeah. If you catch it when it's starting, Nabi was hanging a bunch. I was over.
Yeah.
I saw them on Monday. I had to go pick up some stuff, and they see what they had hanging. It was more of a May and Nabi, and then me and Nabi and Louie.
Yeah.
And so we had, and they were in their work day, but poke around and see what they got, what projects and what things they've got going on, what produce they've got in their place. So.
And those of you guys who haven't followed as long, Nabi, we have a lot of videos with her. She is our foraging guide. Last year we went about once a month on a guided forage with her. So she's who we learned probably the most from around here on what primarily edible foraging. So we do have a lot of videos on that for once a month, different times a year. And I'm not sure if she's going to get to the pawpaws this year or not. She was talking about doing it. She might do one more forage.
She's not been feeling very well off and on most of the last couple months.
Yeah.
I saw her the last 3 or 4 weeks. She's really been kind of beat up and tired, and stomach isn't doing real well. So she's slower getting the projects done.
And that, by the way, is not a foraging issue. Foraging actually probably helped keep her healthy.
Yeah, no, it's just.
It was a food poisoning issue from a Chinese restaurant years ago that they did not get identified and taken care of at the hospital right away. But I think she had a really bad E. coli exposure years ago with this, so she goes through some issues with that.
3 peaches, 2 pears. Yeah, we put in the peach, the nectarine, and the 2 cherries this later spring. And then they're hanging in there. It's been a rough season, but they're still there and doing all right, I think. We'd like to get some pears in, but I just had an opportunity by.
Like some quince too.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of talk about quince brings on a lot of disease and not doing quince.
It depends on the type. So we're going to
talk about. You weren't following Mike's
I was talking about Mike,
where he says even the ones that are fairly resistant to the fire blight or whatever still
might harbor
and
it.
He's recommending, possibly, highly recommending not doing any quince. Although there is 1 or 2 types that might be in play. But he's skeptical of those 2.
And some Asian pears are supposed to do really well around here.
Yeah, they only have like 1 thing that bothers them.
Yeah. So anyway, there is a toothache tree near the sinkhole too.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I'd have to look that one up. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. But yeah, so anyway, we will probably wrap up. Tomorrow is basically day off is our cleaning day and maybe get a video done day.
Yeah,
so,
I got recipes. I got lots of little things to
work
pull
on
together tomorrow, and then
so
busy start into the week.
yeah. So I hope everybody has a good Labor Day. And those of you who are working, I hope you don't have to labor too hard on your Labor Day. But we will be back next week. So same time, same place, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And hopefully have some more updates on our projects and things and how the chickens are doing and all that.
Yep.
So we will say good night for tonight and have a happy Labor Day weekend.
Night.